So going to game 3 of the tournament, I find myself on the top table, facing off against an Empire opponent. So looking at his deployment, he's got a unit of knights on the far left with a musician. He's got a steam tank, big unit of halberdiers with an arc selector with a crown of command, and a 1-up armor save. He also had a captain BSB in the unit with the Van Horstman Speculum, and a level 2 on fire with the Power Stone. So a nice chaff clearing support wizard there. And more towards the center, he's got a great cannon, detachment of bowmen, detachment of spearmen with his level 4 on shadow that had a dispel scroll. He has the volley gun. And out in the far right, he's got a unit of inner circle knights with a warrior priest and a Templar Grand Master with the most anti-Bretonnian build I've ever seen. So this guy had a rune fang, which means every hit he makes wounds automatically with no armor saves. And on top, he's got the other trickster shard, so I have to reroll successful ward save. So when he's in that unit with the warrior priest, he gets to reroll all failed hits. Every hit automatically wounds, no armor saves, and you have to reroll wards. So that is just brutal for Bretonnians. And yeah, something I'm going to consider every time I see an Empire Knight bus in the future. So he also has a great cannon in the back, Capt Assist with Charm Shield and a Lance, and 2 units of Demigryph Knights and another 5-man support unit on the far right. So looking at my deployment on the far left, I've got my unit of 9 Grail Knights with Banner of Swiftness, some Vanguard Mounted Yeomen, Trebuchet, and my big 15 bus of Knights with my level 4 on Beast. So I put the Grail Knights over here to see if I could get them to drop something dangerous on the left, so then I could just redeploy my Grail Knights. And I managed to get the steam tank, and that was perfect. Because my plan over here is I'm just going to move the Grail Knights more towards the right side of the board and try to railroad that steam tank with my mounted yeoman and just try to keep it out of the game. So looking more towards the center, so I've got another solo paladin to provide me some chaff support here in the center. Peg Knights, yeoman, got my double paladin BSB's unit, and to the right of them is my general's unit. So I just want to get those Peg Knights into the Hellblaster volley gun as fast as possible. And out in the far right, so again my BSB's unit and general's unit are over here along with 2 more solo paladins to give me some chaff support. So my only goal after I saw deployment was to try to win the Cav battle. I guessed at the beginning of the game that one of his characters in his halberdier unit had the crown of command, so I didn't want to try to get a kill on that unit. Instead, I wanted to take down his inner circle knights and both Demigryph knights, and then play avoidance after that. So that's my main game plan going into this match. So this is the only picture I have of Empire Turn 1. Actually, I failed to take several pictures throughout this game, which was unfortunate because it was exciting and a very strategic game. I think that's probably why I didn't take as many pictures, just because I was so distracted by the game itself. But regardless, so from what I remember on Empire Turn 1, he moved up a bit. In his shooting phase, his Hellblaster volley gun blew up, which was definitely appreciated. And then his Capt Assist charged my mounted yeoman here. And the yeomen were within my general's leadership and BSB's reroll, and actually stuck and did a wound to his Capt Assist, which was kind of amazing. Go Peasants. So going to Bretonnia turn 1. So I charged one of my solo paladins into one of his 5-man support knight units. This is actually after combat. And the reason I did this is because if I beat him based on the angle, they're just going to bounce right through the Demigryph Knights. And if I can get a panic test on the Demigryph Knights as well, that would just be a beautiful thing. But as you can see, after combat, I charged in, I actually did nothing to them. And these basic knights put a wound on my paladin. So, yeah, that was a big fail there. And in my shooting phase, I was thinking the same thing. So at the beginning of the game, when I saw both these Demigryph Knights huddled together in the corner, man, I was licking my lips with the possibilities. So I targeted my trebuchet rock at one of his demigryph knight units, and I did 2 wounds to him. That was unfortunate because, again, if I can make these guys take a panic test, they're going right off the board, and that's basically 3 points. But it just didn't pan out, really, unfortunately. And another trebuchet rock landed on one of his steam tanks and took off 5 wounds, so definitely limiting the capability of that steam tank. So going to Empire turn 2, he charges a demigryph unit into my red solo paladin there, who had moved up on my turn 1 to chaff up these demigryphs, which you would have known if I had taken more pictures during the game. And more towards the center, his inner circle knights charged the flank of my peg knights. So I'll have to go back in time with this one as well. So his first turn, his Hellblaster volley gun had blown up, so that changed the target of my peg knights, and instead I used him to charge his Captasis in the flank. So I charged him, flanked him, did a wound, put him on a true leadership 5, and he passed it, allowing his inner circle knights to get an easy charge where otherwise it would have just been able to flee. So on the left side, he moved his steam tank forward a bit more, and if you towards the center, you see a couple wound markers out there. It's because he had miscast something. Every wizard took a strength 6 hit. And so here he also moves his 5-man archer detachment to block the charge of my solo paladin to his cannon. And this is after combat on the right side of the board after Empire turn 2. So the good thing was my red solo paladin got away from his demigryphs without taking any wounds. However, my other solo paladin that was tying up his 5-man knight unit, and hence his other demigryph unit as well, lost combat simply because my opponent had a musician on that unit. And I was within my general's leadership, so I needed to pass a 9, but I failed it. And when I fled, I landed right in front of my general's unit, which was a big problem, because now I don't have this nice, juicy countercharge with my general's unit into his demigryphs, and instead I'm just kind of stuck. So that definitely sucked. So going to Bretonnia in turn 2, so my charge phase, I charged his 5-man archer detachment, and he actually fled, which I was really surprised by. And when he fled, he bounced through his spearman unit and behind his cannon, which allowed me to take a redirect test in my BSB's reroll and charge his cannon. So that ended up nicely for me. Looking more towards the left, so you see my Grail Knights are still stuck there at the bottom left side of the board, and that's because I'd failed a swift reform test on my turn 1. And so on my turn 2, instead I just move them up such that I can't get charged by his steam tank, and I can countercharge the steam tank easily if it goes into the flank of my level 4's unit. And the reason my level 4's unit is sitting there is because they failed an easy charge on a 7 with Swift Stride into his inner circle knights, who are just to the right of this picture. And that was hugely significant in this game because, as you can see in this picture, I just sent my BSB's unit solo into that unit, which is not good with that badass character he has. So yeah, this was certainly unfortunate. So in this combat, he had challenged with that character, and I had fed him, I think one of my paladins, yeah. He mopped the floor with him, and then his other regular knights, just having strength 4, but with the rerolls to hit, killed a bunch of other knights. So I really failed pretty hard on my armor saves in this combat. But still, with all my static combat res, and I think maybe I only did 1 wound to him, so I whiffed pretty hard overall, I still won combat, simply because I had a musician and he did not. And so I put him on a leadership 7, which is easily failable, and of course he passes it. So that hurt. But if I had the full force of my level 4's lance going into this unit, there's no way they would have won. Or stuck, rather. So, looking at the rest of this mess on the right side of the picture, so I rallied both my solo paladins, which was nice. I couldn't charge the full force of my unit into the demigryphs, so what I decided to do instead is charge some characters out. So I charged my Heroic Killing Blow General's unit out into the demigryphs. He gets Heroic Killing Blow, kills a demigryph, puts him on a leadership 8, and he sticks. My other paladin that charged out into his normal knight unit with his attacks, but won by a charge. And of course, they passed their 8. I just could not get my opponent to fail a leadership test. It was really, really unfortunate. So going to Empire turn 3, his steam tank comes in the flank of my level 4's unit. And, that's definitely going to be a painful combat for me. More towards the center, he gets a detachment in the flank of my BSB's unit, so they're in big trouble. I don't even think he needs a detachment either with his armor cutting character. And on the far right, his Captasis comes into the flank of one of my 80-point paladins. And if I forget to mention it, so he kills the 80-point paladin with his Captasis. And his Captasis trips and dies in the woods. Which I thought was perfect revenge for the Peg Knight not being able to kill this guy when he should have died earlier. So in his magic phase, he got Miasma off on my general. So I can only hit the demigryphs on 4s now instead of 3s, which will prevent the chances of, or reduce the chances of Heroic Killing Blow. And during this combat, so the previous turn I charged his cannon with my paladin. I wasn't able to kill it, and his crew actually put a wound on my paladin. But this time, even though it doesn't show here, I was able to kill this cannon and then reform to face the other cannon to the right side of this picture. So after combat at Empire turn 3, he kills 4 knights with his steam tank charge, and I lose 1 more due to the banner. So you still see the banner in my unit at this point, but I replace it with the normal knight later. So the wounds are correct, but the models are not. And this is after Empire turn 3 as well, just showing the counter charge I have with my Grail Knights into the steam tank. So on Bretonnia turn 3, I do take that charge. Remember earlier in the game, I got 5 wounds off of this steam tank from a treb shot, so I'm pretty confident I can one-shot it with the Grail Knight charge. So also on Bretonnia turn 3, I charge my combat paladin with the Ogre Blade and demigryphs, along with the remainder of a Knight Lance and an 80-point paladin. So definitely expecting to win that combat. And what I really need to happen here is I need to crush that unit of demigryphs, and my general needs to come through and Heroic Killing Blow another demigryph, win combat, and clear everyone out of the arc of these Inner Circle Knights, because any unit these Inner Circle Knights go into, they're going to crush with that character they have. So also on Brett turn 3, my level 4's unit rallies, thankfully. And I get Weisson's Wild Form off on my Grail Knights. So this is fantastic. I'm strength 7 against his toughness 6, and absolutely going to crush this thing, which I do. I completely dominate it and overrun. So after combat on Brett turn 3 over here, General does not get Heroic Killing Blow. He's still stuck in with the demigryphs, and now he's in big trouble because Inner Circle Knights are just going to come in and rock his world. But the other demigryph knight unit does get run down by one of my Knight of the Realm Lances, which was nice. So here's a view on Empire turn 4. So my previous turn, my other solo paladin did charge his cannon and beat it, which is quite nice. I guess I must have won it on Empire turn 4. And here are the counter charges on Empire turn 4. So I'm trying to remember why I decided to overrun with my Grail Knights into these Halberdiers, and I think the reason was his charge was so easy with his Halberdiers that, I mean, it just wasn't worth it to not overrun. So I guess the hope here is that I would get lucky enough with Weissens up to kill a bunch of Halberdiers, maybe assassinate a few of his minor characters, and just hope for the best. So otherwise, if those Halberdiers charge me to the front, I'm absolutely going to get crushed. So it was a long shot, but if I remember correctly, that's why I did it. So also on Empire turn 4, yeah, his Inner Circle Knights coming to flank my general, who's in big trouble. So it was after combat. Yeah, so they crush and run down my Grail Knights. I killed a decent number of Halberdiers, but not nearly enough to be able to stick in that combat. So going to Bretonnia turn 4, my Knight of the Realm unit comes back on the board, but he had overrun to charge my my Combat Paladin with the Ogre Blade, who will absolutely get crushed. And so he's, if I don't mention it, he gets an easy charge against the remainder of my Knight of the Realm Lance, and they get crushed as well. So Empire turn 5. So let's see. My previous turn, I charged this detachment, failed to beat it, and yeah, we're just sticking around here in Empire turn 5. And actually, this combat continues until the end of the game, where I'm not actually able to kill this minor spearman unit, which is pretty sad. So here he's just moving his small knight detachment to capture an objective point. I don't have a picture of Empire turn 6 or Brett turn 5, but I pretty much covered everything that happened, and this is just showing my solo paladin that got charged by his detachment was able to stick around until the end of the game, and that's it. So I believe this victory granted my opponent a 16 or 17 point win and allowed him to win the tournament and kicked me off the podium. I remember coming into this game just looking at the deployment and thinking, I've got this. I've totally got this game, because I couldn't have asked for better deployment. So he had his steam tank isolated on the left. He had a foot general and BSB out of range of his knight unit and his demigriffs. And I was just thinking, man, I have so many options. I can, tread down a few demigriffs, cause a chain reaction of panic, maybe get some free points that way. I have plenty of chaff to win the night war on the right side of the board, and I felt I was in great position. And it was really in the midpoint of the game, things really started to go downhill. Something bad would happen. I tried to compensate by doing things like charging characters out of units, but I just could not get the guy to fail a leadership test. I think he failed maybe one leadership test all game in combat, which was definitely tough. But the key event that swung this, I think, is my level 4's 15 bus failing a 7-inch charge, or not 7-inch, but needing a 7 on Swift Ride and failing that charge into his Inner Circle Knights. So even my BSB's unit going in there solo still won by a musician. But if I had that 15 bus to bear on the same unit, they would have just crushed that unit. And thinking about how many points those Inner Circle Knights took off of me, that decisive win there would have been huge. And it would have kind of split the board in half for me nicely, where I would have my stubborn level 4's unit kind of in the center that could easily hold up any halberdiers all game, while my lances are over on the right side killing his demigriffs. That would have been a fantastic situation. But alas, I rolled triple ones and failed to charge, and hey, that's how Warhammer works sometimes. But overall, I enjoyed this game just for the thinking and the planning going on between the both of us. And overall, I really loved playing this list during the tournament. So I like to play men-at-arms in a Bretonnian army as much as anyone else, but I think maybe I like pure speed even better. This is an extremely fast list, and one of the things I really wanted to experiment with was the use of these cheap 80-point paladins with just a lance and a shield. I think all three of my games demonstrated how much they can do. They can serve as redirectors, fight chaff, um, just do whatever you want. And so, really enjoyed the use of those solo paladins, as I call them. So, anyways, it was a great tournament. I faced three really good opponents, all great sports. And actually, the last opponent I faced here participated in the U.S. Masters and actually did pretty well. So it's nice to face an opponent of his caliber as well. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. I do have a few more games to post, even though I've been gone forever from YouTube, but I'm back for a little bit at least. Anyways, hope you enjoyed.